if you can't do anything else, you know, it's like people will say how hard it is, and it is hard. It's crazy hard. You know, you would have to be willing to say that you're gonna do it with no success. If you want it bad enough, it's there for you, you know.
Gary, this is great for you to be here on the sessions. I have had so much fun here in Nashville to interview so many different people. As a singer and songwriter, and what you have done and what you continue to do is really amazing. It's incredible the intensity that you have had and that you make happen. Thank you so much for joining us.
So glad to be here.
Tell me where this began for you. Where did music kind of enter your world?
Well, I was a little kid and my sister was 10 years older than me. So in 1956, my sister was 16 and I was 6. And I worshiped my sister, and she had all the great pre-Beatle rock and roll, Fats Domino, Eddie Cochran, you know, Buddy Holly, Bo Diddley.
Yeah.
She was a teenager, Bobby socks her, you know, and I thought she was really cool. And I was forbidden to go to her room and listen to her 45s. So the minute she left the house, I was in her bedroom listening to all this great music, you know. And
Fantastic.
I had a little band, you know. I got a guitar, and it was the Kingston Trio and, you know, that kind of stuff, you know, guitar instrumentals, because nobody could sing. Our voices hadn't changed, and we were playing, you know, ventures and that kind of thing. And then our local hero in Dallas was Freddie King, and he had a hit called Hideaway, guitar instrumental. So everybody had to learn how to play Hideaway. So the Vaughn brothers were I was in Dallas.
Yeah.
Stevie and Jimmy Vaughn were around, and the guy eventually became part of ZZ Top. Some other known people, you know, T-Bone Walker was in the area, Boz Scaggs and Steve Miller. They were locals. They had a band called the Marksmen because they went to St. Mark's High School.
Boy, this was a hotbed of talent.
Yeah, there's all these guys around. Bugs Henderson was a really great guitar player in those days. And so anyway, got started playing, and the Beatles arrived. And, you know, I'd never made a B minor chord. They were all 3-chord songs until the Beatles showed up, and it's like, oh, well, how do you do that? You know, it's like, and so, yeah, learned. I'd never sang harmony before trying to sing Beatles songs. It's amazing. So I had a Beatle band with Carlos Coates and everything, and we played all the Beatles stuff and sang all the harmonies and won the talent shows. And
so you're working around town?
Are you just around Dallas.
Paid now? Is this part professional?
Yeah, well, you know, we're playing
semi-professional.
You know, VFW halls and private parties and just whatever kind of gigs would come about.
Yeah.
And then I started playing probably the roughest gig I ever played in my life was my first gig, which was at the Cellar in Fort Worth, which was a legendary, low-down, crazy nightclub, just the funkiest place you could imagine. Even now, you know, you're just like, oh man, really? You know, but I went to school at North Texas State University, and it was a music school, and became a music major, but I was not into really playing big band jazz, and I realized that if I graduated after 4 years, I would get a degree in dance band. And I already had a dance band, you know, and we're playing 6 nights a week while I'm going to school. And the bass player was my harmony and theory instructor, and he wanted to play in our band, but we already had a bass player that was better than the guy that had the degree. So it was like, that was a thing, you know. And so I quit school after 2 years at North Texas, moved to Hollywood, got a really bad publishing deal that I got out of easily enough. I was in California for the early 70s, and, you know, got a record deal, made a record, made 2 albums, and nothing really happened, and I moved back to Texas. And
well, let's go back to the publishing deal now. Okay. So you signed a publishing deal. You actually signed a
yeah, I mean,
deal?
They gave me $50 a week to be a staff. You know, and they put me in a room with a guy, and, you know, it was not really great activity or anything, but it was like, oh, there's a way, you know. And then I would do lead sheets. I was so slow at writing out that I could maybe come up with 3 lead sheets a day of, you know, writing melodies to really bad songs out. But anyway, we got a record deal, and and carried on, and nothing really happened. And a friend of mine had a group called the Eagles. They moved to California about the same time. So when the Eagles took over everything and our band had no success, I moved back to Texas in 73 or 74 and played in bars, you know, just making a living, being a journeyman guitar player all around Texas and stuff, and kept doing that. Started writing a lot more songs.
Where'd the writing come from?
It started really when I was in college, and then when we got a record deal in the early 70s, we had to have songs. So I wrote all the songs for that, and it got me in a mode of songwriting. And after the band split up and I moved back to Texas, I had formed another band, and we'd rehearse all our rock band in the daytime, and then at night I'd play country music to make a living,
Right.
you know, playing 5 nights a week in a country bar. And so all this country music's coming at me, which I wanted to be a rock and roll. I played Cream and Hendrix and all the stuff that we all played when we were kids. You know?
Yeah.
Then I discovered how great country music, because in Texas, you've got Western swing, you got Bob Wills, you got
Very different sound, right?
You get to act like you're playing jazz,
Right.
when you're playing. You play Western swing, it's challenging, and you get to develop yourself, you know, as a player more. And it's because I'd always thought of country music as being something that you'd go play with the old men that played at the VFW Hall on the weekends,
Right.
and it was like, but I got really turned on to country music. I came up with this song. It was a song about two people who wouldn't speak to each other any longer because they were arguing. So they played, in order to argue, they played songs back and forth on the jukebox, and it was called Jukebox Argument. And she played Release Me, and he played Stand By Your Man, and she played Don't Be Angry, and he played Out of Hand, and she played Good Hearted Woman, and When Will I Be Loved, and he played He'll Have to Go, and The Window Up Above, and she played Jealous Heart and Suspicious Mind, and he played Cheating Heart and Lying Eyes, and she played I'll Get Over You, and he played Born to Lose. So this song, the guy that had been my piano player in my band in the early 70s, he worked with the Eagles and did their string arrangements and stuff, and he stayed in California, became a publisher, and he recorded some songs for the Urban Cowboy soundtrack.
Right.
He called me and asked me if I had anything. I sent him this song. He recorded it on Mickey Gilley in 1980, and that was my foot in the door, my ticket to move to Nashville had 2 sons at the time. I eventually had 4 sons, and my wife and I moved to Nashville in 1980. I wrote for his publishing company for 3 years, and then he left and became president of Warner Brothers Records for 25 years. And I went to Tree Publishing, and I was a staff writer there for 15 years before I left and started my own publishing company.
What an amazing story. What was it like writing like that? You were on a staff writer. What did that mean?
The amazing thing for me is when I got to Nashville, because previous to coming to Nashville, songs would just come to me, or I would just, you know, fiddle around with songs, and it was like, oh, you know, if the muse is there that day or whatever, I would accidentally write songs. You know, I wasn't working at it. Moved to Nashville, and I realized there were guys that get up every morning, drink their coffee, go to work all day long, and
Right.
writing songs day in and day out, and they treat it like a job. So I got here and started doing that, and fortunately I was able to collaborate with some incredible, legendary songwriters. When I got signed to Tree Publishing, they were just this legendary publishing company that published Willie Nelson and Roger Miller and Hank Cochran and just tons of other, Bobby Braddock and Curly Putman and on and on.
So now you're involved in writing these songs, and where do you think some of the ideas were coming from?
Well, in those days, it was a time when most of the artists were traveling on the road, and you knew that, you know, the artists were going to come off the road, and the A&R department and the producer was going to collect songs and play these artists the songs. And so if you had an idea for a song and you knew that Conway Twitty or Charlie Pride or whoever was going to be recording, then if you had an idea that fit that artist, you developed it And so when it came time for them to make the record, you had a shot, at getting songs on those records. So that's how I was able to make a living writing songs, is to really target a lot of these known country artists. My first #1 record was by Don Williams. It just went from there. Then I began writing with artists. I wrote a song with Vince Gill that was my second #1, but co-written with Vince. It's called One More Last Chance. And it's like the opportunity to collaborate with an artist who's getting ready to make a record. You've got a direction. You've got, what you're going for. You've got a guy in the room that's going to be making a record. And in the case of Vince Gill, I mean, what do you say? It's just one of the most talented people that's ever lived. So that was a lot of it, writing more with artists, and still, just trying to write a song that could get recorded by anybody. But because of the artists you had access to, if you had an idea and you could think, well, wow, in my heart of hearts, if I could have Eric Clapton record this song, it'd be great, but I don't have access to Eric Clapton, so I'm going to try to develop this idea for Don Williams or whoever.
Right.
So, you had your targets.
So you had to have the target of the artist that you felt, how they sang, where their life was at, when they were going to go on tour. Yeah.
At the same time, I wouldn't stress so much that, I was just totally focused on this for that or this. It was mostly writing songs, that, you might have been thinking of Don Williams or Charlie Pride or Conway Twitty or something.
Yeah.
But then you write the song and it's recorded by the new guy that just got signed, and that's Keith Whitley or somebody else that's great, and you're writing songs that fit the market.
Right.
You knew that in this mode that you're writing songs that kind of sound like what the radio sounded like at that point in time. I'm talking about the 80s.
Yeah.
So that's it. I mean, in a lot of ways, it was formulaic and it was generic in certain respects, and you're thinking, well, this isn't exact. I mean, I'd rather be Bob Dylan, but Bob Dylan's not getting a lot of covers by Conway Twitty.
Right.
Right. And he doesn't have to make a living by writing songs for somebody else.
Yeah.
So instead of applying myself to being a singer-songwriter as an artist, I was fortunate that, I played guitar on the road with, my first job in Nashville was to play on the road with Guy Clark, who is legendary songwriter, and just being in his company. And then after that, it was Billy Joe Shaver, who I still work. I just produced Billy Joe's last few records, and Bobby Bare, and some of these artists that I revered. I'd be their guitar player and make some extra money that way. But just learning from everybody. Every time you co-write a song, you felt like you're just osmosis of it. You're picking up things. You're learning the craft. And there's kind of a way of, you could say, if you went to LA, you knew, it's like, that's kind of a Nashville kind of song, And you realize that there was a specific, I hate to say that it's formulaic, but it was formulaic in a way, kind of generic in certain respects. Whereas I would listen to songs that got pitched to this. Jim Ed Norman was the guy that brought me to town, and he was producing Anne Murray, and I wasn't really the kind of guy that would naturally write a song for Anne Murray, but I tried really hard because I knew that I had access through Jim Ed, but he never recorded a song that I wrote for Anne Murray. But the first record she made after Jim Ed quit producing her, I had 3 songs on it because I tried so hard to do that. But I was always really a blues lover when I was a kid, kind of a blues nerd. Kind of a kid, And,
a blues nerd, I love it.
Yeah, well, it's like, it was because of Freddie King being our local hero, and through Freddie I found out about B.B. King and Albert King, and it's like, that was a love of mine, but I didn't know how to get to any of those people to get songs recorded, and the money was getting on the radio, so I was fortunate to be able to stay home, raise a family, write songs for a living,
But as the recording
Streaming.
industry and the session industry, so streaming has changed all that now.
Oh yeah.
Where do you think, before we get into the actual business itself, where do you think a lot of the songwriting ideas came from? It was just a personal life that you had, was this you digging deep into yourself to get these ideas?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at your own experience to draw from, but, a lot of these scenarios is like, you're writing country music. It's about drinking and divorcing, and I've been happily married all this time, but my parents were divorced when I was young, so I could
relate to that.
I could get to that, and you think about the inspiration for a song being, something that you've plumbed the depths of your psyche to find something to say. Well, a lot of times it's just that you need to write a song because you got a gig, and your gig is you're a songwriter and you got to turn something in, and so-and-so's recording it. If you can come up with a song that gets on the radio, then if you write a hit, you can get your family out of the worst rent house in Nashville and buy a house and get your kids through college. And
how incredible. What an incredible time. So now you talk about streaming. How has it changed so much now?
Well, there used to be 4,000 publishing deals in Nashville. Now there's 400. You know what the streaming royalties are.
Very small.
Yeah.
Very small.
Compare, if you just hear your song on the radio and you're driving down the road, a terrestrial radio station plays your song, pays 9 cents. If the same song is streamed, it pays 8/10,000ths of 1 cent. So that you could have 1 million streams, make you $500. It's insane.
Yeah, you can't live off of that.
Yeah.
So what can be done to change that? What has to be done to alter that so the artists, the songwriters can turn this around? Can it be turned around?
We probably have to evolve as a species beyond unbridled greed. It's insane that songwriters, we've got a couple generations that have gone down now that consider all music as being free, because anything you want to hear, you just go to YouTube or Spotify or whatever.
Just listen to it.
Whatever streaming service you can have. And I'm not one of those guys that wants to, hang on to the past. I know streaming is our future, and it's here, and there's no going back and all that. My only hope is that the laws can be changed and that we can go up against these huge, it's a bunch of hillbilly songwriters trying to duke it out with Google, and march in the halls of Congress. And I'm on the board of NSAI, Nashville Songwriters Association International, and there is a Music Modernization Act, a bill that's through Congress that'll probably get signed. We're making some headway, but tiny increments. They could double the amount that they pay us now. That's what this thing would do. But over the next 5 years, royalties could increase for songwriters by 40%, which would mean that instead of 8/10,000ths of 1 cent, it's 16/10,000ths. So
it's a move forward.
Yeah.
In the right direction.
But what it does, to get off into this, we talk forever about the consent decrees that have come down. We're dealing with laws that were made concerning piano rolls and sheet music, and it evolved through that, and all through the invention of rock and roll and the Beatles and everything. It was a penny rate, penny to the publisher, a penny to the writer, because sheet music sold for a penny.
Yeah.
Songwriters have not been able to unionize. We're the only people in the entertainment industry that don't have a union. So that's why the value of Nashville Songwriters Association is amazing, because it's an effort to get us paid right.
Well, what a journey.
It's criminal what's happened to the songwriting business. I was fortunate, crazy fortunate, because people were going from vinyl to CD, and a lot of records got sold, and you'd be on a record that could sell 7 or 8 million copies on a Dixie Chicks or George Strait or Garth Brooks.
Yeah.
A lot of these people that I was fortunate to have songs recorded by sold a lot of records. Even if I didn't have the hit, I was able to make a living from having a lot of songs recorded,
Right.
from mechanical royalties, sales. And so now, you know, there's no physical sales except, you know, some people are still buying some CDs.
Yeah,
Not to say now, if you have a hit on the radio now, it pays more than ever on mainstream terrestrial radio. If you're one of the people that, you know, maybe there's 10 or 15 or 20 guys in Nashville that are consistently on the charts writing songs for all the modern pop country artists
Right.
that we have now. And you know, you can make a fortune if you're inside that loop and you're getting songs recorded consistently by mainstream recording artists. And country.
So that's where the answer is, to get inside that loop. So
Yeah.
when you're co-writing with someone like Garth or whatever, what's the relationship that you have? Is it as you write the song, is it a 50-50 relationship? Do you share publishing? How do you
Say
work
if
with
I
that?
wrote a song with Garth Brooks or Vince Gill or whatever, it's still a 50-50, you know, we're co-writers, the two of us. Or if there's three guys in the room, it's a three-way split. Yeah.
That's still a very, very, you know, common way of how things
I mean,
are run.
in this community, in the Nashville community, I mean, I know that there are other ways of splitting copyrights up by, you know, a lot of the pop songs in LA or whatever, or you know, it's a gang right with, you know, you'll see, you know, 6 songwriters on a song or something, you know.
Yeah.
There's never any question about if there's 3 people in the room, it's a 3. I mean, most of the time, there are different situations, but in the songwriting community in Nashville, it's if there's 2 of you, it's 50-50.
That's fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic. So in the passion that it takes to write and the passion that it takes to run this business, what motivates you now?
Love. If you're completely, devastatedly, hopelessly in love with the doing of it, if it's your guitar playing or songwriting, for me, I'm committed to songwriting. Yeah, I'm a guitar player. I've always made a living as a guitar player before I wrote any songs, you know. But I'm not the most outstanding guitar player that plays sessions and make a living playing sessions. I chose the path of songwriting because that's what drives me. That's what I'm most interested in, writing songs and that level of communication. It's about the lyrics.
Yeah.
You know, we all know all the changes, and we play our instruments, and we have a certain command of composition from being familiar with our instruments and everything. But I was fortunate to, you know, be around someone like Guy Clark and Billy Joe Shaver and Townes Van Zandt, some of these, and all the incredible Nashville songwriters. They're everywhere around here. You know, they're just, you'll meet somebody that's legendary. They're just all roaming around here. Yeah.
Who are some more of the names of some of the legendary people here? You know, part of this here is as these next generation watches this, I want them to hear these names and then do the research of how they can track them down. Who would you say?
I guess everybody knows these people. I mentioned Guy and Billy Joe Shaver and Townes Van Zandt, and that because I'm a Texan, and that those are the revered Texas songwriters. But you know, I mean, obviously Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard. For me, I think they'll look back on this time and they'll say, well, yeah, country music did this to a certain point, and then this fellow named Merle Haggard showed up and defined what country honky-tonk music was. I think Merle was just one of the greatest artists we've ever had. And right along with him is Willie Nelson. I've been so fortunate to have Willie record my songs through the years.
What an honor this is.
It's unbelievable.
It's amazing.
Because my parents used to go see Willie in Fort Worth, you know, when I was a kid, and you know, Willie and Ray Price, and then it's like, yeah, it's all these people that I totally revere that I've had a chance to have some recordings by, and you know, to co-write with a Beatle and all that stuff. It's
Totally.
unreal.
Co-writing with Ringo. Tell me a little about that co-writing with Ringo.
Well, the first song I wrote with Ringo was a tribute to George Harrison, And I had met a fellow named Mark Hudson who was collaborating with Ringo, and he was producing his record. And Mark and I went on a trip to Bali, Indonesia with some other artists, and we had collaborated a little bit. And he came over and we wrote a song together and presented it to Ringo and left some space for the lyric for Ringo to say something about George in the lyric. And that was my first co-write with Ringo. And then we've just continued to write together since then. And so his current record is called Give More Love. We wrote that together.
Nice.
It's fantastic. You know, the sense of humor that Ringo exhibits, you know, that you've seen him through the years, that's really prevalent when you're around him. He's kidding around a lot and having a good time. And he'll say, just, I'm a drummer. You know, it's like, he doesn't need to go out and play music, but he keeps his all-star band together.
Yes.
His cycle is he'll make a record and get those guys together. They go out and tour and have a big time, and he gets to play music. He just loves to play the drums, and you know, it's like that's what drives him.
And he keeps his machine going and gives away an amazing amount of money to charity.
Tons of,
This is incredible what he has done and continues to do.
Right. He draws these figures that you know, then they'll auction them off and stuff, and he'll just do all kinds of stuff to help people out. Fantastic guy, just
a true
really
humanitarian.
great spirit, and he's been so kind to me. And I think guys like that, I mean, they know how much love is being broadcast at them all the time. You know, he's found a way to take it in and give it back, you know.
Absolutely, a true humanitarian. It's at the highest level.
Absolutely.
In closing, what would you say to this next generation? Here's this next generation that's out there. There are people that have the passion to write songs, they want to play music, they want to be involved in this business. What would you say to that next generation?
Well, it's back to that thing, you know, for me, is if you can't do anything else, you know, it's like people will say how hard it is, and it is hard. It's crazy hard. You know, you would have to be willing to say that you're going to do it with no success. That even if, you know, it's like a guy that says, you know, I'm willing to do this and to live at a level of not, you know, I'm not going to go into law or medicine or whatever. I'm going to be a musician because this is the way I want to spend my time on earth. And you love it enough to apply yourself to it. You know, I mean, obviously, it's your own development. You know, you develop yourself as much as you possibly can, you know, to be able to do it. But that's the love of it too. I mean, if you really love to play your instrument, you're going to practice all the time. You're going to get really good at it, and it's in the doing of it that you're fulfilled. You know, you get your fulfillment from your accomplishment, even as your facility with your instrument. You know, the joy of being able to make the music, and then same thing with being able to take on, you know, the fact that hey, I might be playing in a bar. I mean, before I moved to Nashville, I played the same country bar for 2 years, you know. and then all the guys that are out there riding buses all over the country, living their lives on the road away from their families. You know,
it's commitment.
You're gone all the time
Yeah.
in order to play that hour-and-a-half show. You know, if you want it bad enough, it's there for you, you know.
That's probably the most profound part of it. If you want it bad enough, it's there for you.
Yeah.
Well, from you sneaking into your sister's room to hear that music and to absorb all of what was happening, to the fact that now the songs you have written will be heard continually by millions of people, and you will have touched their heart with the power of your pen, that really is an amazing journey.
Yeah.
On behalf of the Sessions, Gary, we thank you so much.
So glad to be with you. Thank
Fantastic.
you. Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
Appreciate it.